So here's how to rewire your brain so you actually enjoy studying for your exams, like your A-levels, IGCSE, or whatever. So my name is Richard, and I got these results in my A-levels, which allowed me to graduate high school 1 year early. Here's how I would do it without all this hardship and with half the effort. So do you feel like it's really hard for you to study? Do you feel like it's like you struggle to actually do the work, right? You see other people, they're studying hours of the day, or, they're so motivated, but you aren't like that, right? That's actually me, right? That's actually what I used to be like. I struggled so hard with actually doing the work, right? And that was because before I was so stimulated, right? I was, what was I doing, right? Coming home from school, scrolling on my phone and watching YouTube videos for a couple of hours, maybe jacking off and maybe play some video games, right? That's what a lot of us are like. That's what a lot of us young people are like, right? But what if we could actually escape that? What if we could actually stop and get out of that, right? And actually find studying more intrinsically fun, become more motivated to actually study and actually do it, right? Because if you're stimulating all yourself over here, right, it brings you highs up here, right? When you go to study, it feels like here, because studying is less stimulating than, doing these fun habits, right? These fun habits, right? So you feel that contrast and it feels like shit. And so obviously you don't want to study. But what if we could actually just enjoy studying and start to study more? How can we do that? Well, there are 3 things that have really improved my ability to study and ability to actually enjoy doing it and be more intrinsically motivated to do it, right? So this is through dopamine detoxing, improving my mental health, and also through setting a big goal. These are the 3 things that I talk a lot about. I expand a lot about in my program, link in the description below. Have a look at that if you want. But first off, for dopamine detoxing, we have to understand this term of instant gratification versus delayed gratification. All these really stimulating habits that you kind of know about, that you kind of intrinsically know are not that good for you. For example, what is it? Video games, scrolling your phone, watching a bunch of Netflix shows, junk food, all these kind of things, right? These kind of things that your mom tells you off for doing that, might seem unfair, right? But deep down, you kind of know that they're not that good for you, right? They give you a stimulating high, right? They give you a stimulating fun. They give you a lot of fun and pleasure right now. But over the long term, it kind of makes your life a bit worse, right? Drugs are the ultimate form of instant gratification, but we're not going to talk too much about those. We're going to talk about more common addictions, right? We do this kind of enjoyable, pleasurable task, but then we're making our future selves' life a little bit worse, right? And so that's one instant gratification activity. But if you contrast this with a delayed gratification activity, which is one task which feels kind of, a bit harder, a bit less comfortable for now, or it could be a little bit enjoyable, depending on the task, right? But over time, it brings you real life rewards and increased skills and more satisfaction and life fulfillment, right? For example, studying. For example, socializing with your friends, right? Going out and meeting your friends in real life. For example, going out and exercising, going to the gym, all these kind of things which you know that you probably should be doing more of. These delayed gratification activities, which are good for you in the long run, which is kind of uncomfortable or hard in the short term, but good for you in the long run. And so dopamine detoxing is basically just cutting down on all these instant gratification activities to replace them with more delayed gratification activities. And so why would we do that? Why would we get rid of all these fun activities? Why would we? It's the fun, right? It's the fun part of life, right? I love my Netflix shows. I love video games. I need my video games. I need to play video games. Video games are the best fun part of life. You do realize you sound a bit like a crack addict if you say that. You'd be like, yeah, bro, it's only one blunt. It's only one blunt every single day, right? That's kind of what you sound like. But also, look, genuinely, I'm telling you from personal experience, once you quit these kind of things, once you quit these activities, your life will become more enjoyable overall, right? You start to quit these activities. If you start to replace it with these low dopamine, these more delayed gratification activities, your overall base happiness will actually increase, right? The thing is, with most people right now who spend all their life on instant gratification, their baseline happiness is fucking low as hell. it is low as hell, right? You are like down here all the time. And you don't enjoy school, you don't enjoy any of that, you don't enjoy studying at all. But then you go and play video games. You're like, oh yeah, it's so fun, it's so fun, it's so fun. And then you go back down, right? And like your overall happiness, right? Your overall happiness is actually really low because on average, it's like down here, right? You're low key kind of depressed. That's what I've seen from a lot of kids nowadays. Because I teach children, right? I teach kids. A lot of kids, they low key don't even have that much fun, right? Which is really sad because they spend all the time on their phone, right? It's really sad. But most of the time you're spent down here because video games are so fun up here that they make the rest of life so boring. So your baseline is so low. But with a more like sustainable, more healthy, delayed gratification activity, right? You might have some dips, studying's a bit hard, but exercising is a bit hard. It's kind of painful. But afterwards, you go back up here. Your baseline is like up here, right? Your baseline is just so much happier, right? You just actually start to automatically smile, right? You get some of the results and some of the successes, right? You get the gym progress, you get the study results, you start to see some of the fruits of your labor, right? And so that feels fucking great because you've achieved something. You've achieved something that's successful, right? It's great. It's a great feeling. So you start to automatically be more happier, right? Once you start to cut out these distractions, you'll realize how bad they were, right? Oh yeah, like that one last hour of video game that I really needed it. But once you start to cut it out, you'll realize how wrong you were, how much better your life can be once you start to actually embrace real life, right? And so you should start to replace these activities slowly but surely. Or, honestly, you could go full cold turkey on this, right? Cut out your internet, delete the apps. So what you can do is you start to replace all these instant gratification activities with delayed gratification, right? You start to replace them so that you start to replace them. And so you start to make progress in an area that's important to you, right? And you'll start to see some of the results of that, and it'll feel great. It will genuinely feel great. And so once you cut out that stimulation, you'll find studying more interesting because, well, first off, you'll be happier in the first place. But also because if you have less of these stimulating activities, you won't feel that contrast anymore. You won't feel so much of that contrast. And so studying will become more intrinsically interesting, right? If you think about if you've seen the documentary about African kids, right? If you've seen that, right? All of them love school, right? And they love learning, they love reading and about new things and education, right? And the thing is, as a kid, you probably did actually enjoy these things as well. You'd like to learn new things, but because of the fact that you've been so stimulated by TikTok, you've forgotten that. It feels like nothing compared to your love of TikTok, compared to your addiction to TikTok, right? So why can't you tap into that little kid energy or the African kid energy, right? Like the African kid probably doesn't have internet. The dopamine detox feels great once you're on it, right? It'll feel kind of hard to transition, but once you're on it, right? You'll never want to go back. You'll never want to go back because you'll realize how happy you feel truly. And so for our dopamine detox, what should we start to implement? What kind of delayed gratification activities should we start to put in? Well, what I found has worked the best for me has been things that have been focused on improving my mental health, right? Because mental health is so incredibly important, right? Because if you struggle with like doing the work, for example, improving your mental health will mean that you'll automatically start to do the work more, right? Because if you start to feel more happy and fulfilled and you start to feel like you are enjoying life more, well, naturally, you're going to study more, right? Naturally, you're going to find studying more interesting, right? Because, you're in a more healthy mindset, right? You're not going to scroll on your phone if you're feeling genuinely happy, right? That scrolling on your phone is low-key a sign of depression, right? That's just what it is. So what are some habits that we can do to improve our mental health? Exercise. Obviously, you probably already know a couple of these, right? Exercise and go outside more, speak to your friends more, go and look at sunlight, for example. All these things which are reminiscent of you as a kid, right? All these little things. But on top of that, another one which has really helped me is meditation. Meditation has been really instrumental in like me being able to more control myself, right? So I meditate for like 15 minutes a day, something like that, every single day. And I meditate, and genuinely that little voice inside of me that tells me to do the right thing, it's stronger. So for example, if I pick up my phone, I'll start to remember like, why did I pick up my phone again? It's like, oh yeah, I actually don't need my phone right now. I'll have a bit of like a conscious moment, which will tell me like, yeah, I don't need to eat the chips, right? I don't want to eat the chips. I've got a diet to, I want to keep to my diet. So I'm not going to eat those chips, right? Like it helps me keep more conscious and helps me make the right choices, right? It's all these little micro decisions it's really helped me with, right? Help me become more present and all these kind of things. Help me more enjoy my life more and become more like happy, right? Also, gratitude journaling, focusing in on happiness, right? Gratitude journaling is the habit of, writing down a couple of things that you are grateful for, right? So you have, I don't know, for example, you write down, I'm grateful for your family, my friends, or something that you are, something specific that you are grateful for, right? And what this does is genuinely just starts to train your brain to become more positive, because what happens when when we watch media, when we watch in the internet, right? Like we look at the internet and the internet is just full of like negative shit, right? It's just stuff that, isn't very good. It's not very happy. And so we've been training ourselves to start to believe in them in a negative way, right? And so when you look at yourself, what do you see? Well, if you look at yourself, you're more likely to see negative thoughts, right? But if we start to focus in more on the positive, start to force more positive thoughts in, we will automatically start to generate more positive thoughts. We will start to think, oh yeah, I'm actually pretty good. I'm not stupid. I'm better than that. Or something like that, right? And you'll automatically start to generate these thoughts. Your mood overall will just become better because you had a positive thought. Force a smile and use something like that, right? Force a smile and you'll simply feel a bit better, right? You'll feel a bit better and you'll become more likely to actually do the work, right? In a weird way, right? This is a big lesson from a book of, by Ali Abdaal, which is called Feel Good Productivity, right? Which is that feeling good will just make you more likely to study, which will make you study better, make you more creative, more focused, and help you learn better, right? So if you could literally just force yourself to be happy or just force a smile, right? Be more grateful, right? Automatically generate these thoughts. You'll automatically be more successful because of your happiness, right? The third thing, and probably one of the most important ones that has helped me to actually start to study and really enjoy my study, for example, is to actually have it as a really big part of my goal, right? So, you're not going to work that very hard on work that is not aligned to you, right? Not aligned to your personal goals. And obviously that's natural, right? That's natural. That's just how it should be, right? And so if you actually want to study really hard for these exams, right, you have to think about how these exams may fit into your goals, right? Why do you study physics? Why do you study maths, right? So that you can become a scientist in the future, to study this kind of thing that you're passionate about, this kind of problem that you're interested in, right? Think about what kind of problems you're interested in, what kind of space you're interested in, right? And how this will help you become this, right? Maybe you want to get into this university, you want to get into this career, you want to get into this kind of program, right? A lot of having this big goal will mean that you'll work way harder. So if you really want to do well on this exam, for example, you have to make it part of your goals, right? So naturally, there'll be some things which you're not that interested in, right? That you might have to study. You might have to learn English. You might have to learn the subject, right? Obviously, you're not going to try as hard in it, right? You're not going to find it as intrinsically enjoyable, right? And that's okay. That's fine, right? As long as the most important thing to you, the most important goal to you is being worked on, you're actually doing the dopamine detox and you're actually focusing on it and you have a big goal, it'll make you work so much harder because you have a thing to strive for. You have a reason to get high grades. You have a reason to work hard, right? Having a reason is incredibly important, right? For me, for example, right, I remember back then I wanted to get into, the University of Sydney and get into this really good engineering program, right? Study this really hard program. And that was my dream, right? And that required really good grades. And that was something I was working really hard towards, right? I didn't actually go to Sydney because I just didn't want to. I didn't actually end up going to Sydney, but that's the thing, right? because I had that goal, just because I had that goal, it meant that I was working way harder than I would have. So just to sum it up, having these goals is incredibly important in order to put some direction in your life and for you to work really harder. But also dopamine detoxing and improving your mental health will mean you'll start to enjoy the journey along the way, right? You'll just enjoy studying more. So go and implement that into your life, right? Start to implement that dopamine detox. Write some goals out and start to incorporate these kind of habits, right? 15 minutes of meditation here, replacing your scrolling time with going to play a sport, for example. All these little things will slowly improve you and your mental health, and it'll mean that you'll start to enjoy studying more. So if you're an A-level or IGCSE student like I used to be, go have a look at the link in the description below if you struggle with like physics or maths, I expand on what I talked about on this video in a lot more detail. So just have a look at that if you're interested. Top link in the description below. See ya. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.